All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about a book that almost everyone knows, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And it looks like a kid's story, right? But it's a profound message for all the grown-ups out there who've kind of forgotten what it was like to be a child. This line right here, from the book's dedication, it's everything. It really is the key. It sets the stage for the big idea we're going to unpack, this clash between the wide-open, imaginative world of a kid and the rigid, sensible world of grown-ups. It's like a challenge thrown down right on the very first page. So, to really get the story, you got to understand the guy who wrote it. And believe me, his life was anything but ordinary. This wasn't some author locked away in a dusty study. No, his life was lived up in the clouds, often right on the edge of survival. Yeah, Saint-Exupéry. He was a man of action first and writer second. I mean, this guy flew some of the very first incredibly dangerous airmail routes. We're talking facing down sandstorms, hostile tribes. This wasn't just stuff he made up for a book. This was his life. And seriously, his life story, it reads like a straight-up adventure novel. He learns to fly, takes on these insane routes, fights in World War II, and then, while he's in exile in the US, he pours all of that wild experience into this one tiny book. And the tragic part? Just a year after it came out, he disappeared on a mission. Just gone, never seen again. And this is so important. The narrator of the book, the pilot who crashes his plane in the Sahara, that's him. That's Saint-Exupéry. He was literally drawing from his own near-death experiences. He took his own real-life isolation and fear and turned it into the setting for this beautiful, magical story. Okay, so with that in mind, let's dig into the book's main argument, which he hits you with right in chapter 1, and it's all about what he calls the failure of the grown-up imagination. So the narrator tells us this story. When he was a little 6-year-old boy, he drew what he called his drawing number 1. He was super proud of it. He showed it to the grown-ups and asked, "Does this scare you?" And their response? It was so blunt, so literal, they totally missed the point. Because you see, it wasn't a hat at all. And this just perfectly shows that split, doesn't it? The grown-ups, they see a boring object. The kid? He sees a whole story unfolding, a giant boa constrictor that just swallowed an elephant. He even drew a second picture, showing the elephant inside the snake. Because as he says, grown-ups, they always need to have things explained. And this quote just nails that feeling, that childhood frustration, the feeling of seeing magic absolutely everywhere, while all the adults around you just see, boring practical things. And for our narrator, this was so disheartening that he gave up his dream of being an artist and decided, fine, I'll be a pilot instead. So the narrator grows up, he flies planes all over the world, and he learns to talk to other adults about, sensible stuff like politics and golf. That is until his plane crashes. And that crash leads to the most impossible, most magical encounter of his entire life. I mean, just try to put yourself there for a second. You are completely, utterly alone, stranded in the Sahara, 1,000 miles from anyone. Your life is literally hanging by a thread. You fall into this exhausted sleep on the sand, and at sunrise, you're woken up by this strange, tiny, serious voice. And this voice, it doesn't ask for water, it doesn't ask for help. It makes the most absurd, the most wonderful, the most out-of-place request you could possibly imagine in that moment. The pilot is just stunned, right? But he hasn't drawn since he was 6, and yet he does it. He draws a sheep. But it turns out the Little Prince is a very particular critic. This first try, nope, rejected immediately. See, he doesn't just see a drawing. He sees the health of the animal inside it. So the pilot tries again, but no good. The prince sees past the simple lines on the page. For him, the details are everything. This isn't the gentle little sheep he had in his head. This one's a ram. It has horns. It's just not right. Okay, third time's the charm? Nope, this one gets rejected too. The Little Prince has this incredibly specific vision in his mind. He doesn't just want a sheep. He wants a companion, a friend who's going to live a long, long time. The drawing has to capture the feeling, not just the outline. All right, so by now, the pilot is losing his patience. I mean, he's got an engine to fix, right? He's in a hurry. So he just gives up on drawing a literal sheep. And instead, he taps back into that very same imagination the grown-ups crushed in him when he was just a boy. He draws a simple box.
And the prince's reaction? His face just lights up. He gets it. Instantly, he can see the perfect sheep inside that box, the exact one he'd been imagining all along. It's such a beautiful moment. It's the pilot reconnecting with his own inner child, and it proves that famous line, "What is essential is invisible to the eye."
So who is this amazing little person? Well, as our narrator starts to piece together the prince's story, we get this really sharp critique of the whole grown-up obsession with numbers and facts that don't really matter. We learn the prince comes from this tiny little world, an asteroid scarcely larger than a house. But the narrator, he knows grown-ups. He knows he can't just tell them it was a beautiful little planet. Oh no, they need a name, a number, a label to file away. So he gives it one, Asteroid B-612. And to show how absurd this all is, he tells this great little story about a Turkish astronomer who discovered the asteroid. The first time, in 1909, he presents his discovery wearing traditional Turkish clothes, and nobody at the big international conference takes him seriously. Crickets. But years later, a dictator makes everyone in his country wear European clothes. The same astronomer presents the exact same findings, but this time in a suit. And suddenly, everyone believes him. They all applaud. It just goes to show, grown-ups often care more about the packaging than what's inside. And here, the narrator just lays it out perfectly. These two totally different ways of knowing something is real. For us, the people who understand, the proof that the prince existed is in his very being, his laugh, his charm, the fact that he wanted a sheep. But for them, the grown-ups, the only thing that's going to convince them is a hard fact, a number they can write down. But here's the thing, the book's message isn't just about seeing with your heart. It's also about taking action. It's about responsibility. And that brings us to one of the most famous and powerful metaphors in the whole story, the baobabs. The little prince explains that on his tiny planet, you have to be so careful. There are good seeds, like for roses, and then there are bad seeds, from these monstrous baobab trees. And when they're just little sprouts, they all kind of look alike. But you have to learn to spot the bad ones and pull them up right away. Because if you wait, their roots will grow so big and so powerful, they will literally tear your entire world apart. It is, like he says, a simple question of discipline. And of course, this isn't really a story about gardening, is it? The baobabs, they represent all those little problems we tend to ignore. You know, the bad habits, the lazy thoughts, the fears we don't want to face. If we don't deal with them with daily discipline, they can grow into these huge, uncontrollable catastrophes. And so the book leaves us with this quiet but really powerful question for every single one of us. What are the baobabs in your life that you need to take care of before it's too late?